He fires, and it is caught for a touchdown. It's gone! And Giroux's got it!
And the Sixers have scored 9 in a row. Are you kidding me?
Yes, good afternoon. We're right here in the Tyler Werner Show as the station manager Mike Regensberger just said in the PSA. As Mike is not here today. Actually, he won't be back until tomorrow. Actually, so we're going solo today on the show. We don't have the ability to take any calls, unfortunately. Not that many people call in in the first place, but anyhow, we got the Facebook page, facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show, or just type it in the search box, Tyler Werner Show, and it'll be there. Philadelphia Sports Talk. I mean, we got, obviously we got I mean, if you want to, Philly's going right now. Not much going on there really. Now for the first, I think, what was it? The new statistic, the Phillies have, been accumulating some, interesting statistics this year. Not good ones. A few weeks ago you had the Chicago Cubs beating the Phillies in a series for the first time in what was it, since 2001. Well, now at home, this past week, for the first time since I think 1964 or so, about 50 years, the Philadelphia Phillies get swept at home by the Atlanta Braves. And I mean, for my money, I mean, you can, if there's any hope in previous weeks, as far as the Phillies possibly turning around and making a run for a playoff spot, I think you could stick a fork in it officially now, and they're now 10 games under 500. First time that happened this season, and it just shows the general direction of this team to begin with, and now they got a series with the Miami Marlins, another division rival, 3-game series the next few days. I don't know, but I guess in other news, I mean, for those following the World Cup of Soccer, I mean, you got a big game coming up in a matter of minutes. If you're following the USA, I mean, USA obviously taking on Belgium right after I finish up here on the Tyler Werner Show. So there you go. I mean, carry over some Philly sports talk for you until that game comes on, since obviously the Phillies are just they are what they are, and quite frankly, I'm not surprised as to where this season just continues to go now with the Philadelphia Phillies. But obviously, I mean, last week we talked NBA draft, and unfortunately, the podcast I actually just got up on the YouTube channel for last week's show, because for some reason I don't know what happened with my internet, but. And if anybody can explain this to me too,
I just think somebody owes us an explanation.
As I normally would at home, I try to upload the video to YouTube so I can put it on the Facebook page of the podcast, and for some reason, I tried this multiple times too, and it, for whatever reason, it uploads to about 53-54% or something in that range. And it'll say, like, it's got 15 minutes remaining or whatever, and then so for whatever reason that 15 minutes becomes 40 minutes, and then it becomes 200 minutes, and I even let it go long enough, and the next day I look, and overnight it still hasn't uploaded. It's at 600 some minutes, and it's still at 53%. I don't know what the deal is with that. Maybe it's something for me to Google.
Google me.
But I mean, so I wasn't able to at home, something with the internet. I don't know. Maybe the thunderstorms made something slower. I have no idea. But fortunately here I put it on the flash drive, and I was able to upload it to the channel. So if this week's podcast also doesn't come up in timely fashion, then that's probably why. But if not, I mean, we got good fast internet right here in the KUR studio, so I always just have to put the podcast up on this internet, this reliable internet, if I can't at home. Sometimes I guess those things happen. But also, across the street we got the it's July 1st now. I mean, festivals. We got the Kutztown Folk Festival. I'm tempted to call everything KU something here, but the Kutztown Folk Festival is going on right now up here in Kutztown. And, of course, down my high school, my alma mater, Governor Mifflin, they got community days going right now. Interesting. And you know what? For whatever reason, I haven't even been to community days, or any of these festivals really. I think for like 10 years for whatever reason. I'm just not. I don't know. I mean, you're a kid and you play the games and it's fun, and since then I just haven't really had the. I guess the itching to go out to community days and I guess hang out with the people that hang out there. I don't know what it is, but maybe I'm just more focused on talking sports and following sports and doing whatever else during my summer days. Talking, and when you're talking sports, I mean Philadelphia sports. The Sixers draft last week. I from listening to other radios, personalities and just other people in general in my area. It's definitely polarized the fan base without question. The direction that the 76ers went in this year's draft, Sam Hinkie, now coming up on his second year as the general manager of the Sixers. And of course, last week on the show, if you listened live, if you didn't listen live, I encourage you to check out the podcast because that's, now I just got that up on YouTube. It's rather interesting. Last week, I was going through this. It was called the author of the article called it the Common Sense 2014 NBA Draft first round. Kind of funny title there. They had it going. The first three picks of the draft. I mean, they had going the way I would have thought, and the way that it ended up going. Andrew Wiggins to the Cavaliers. The Bucks taking who you thought they would take, and then the Sixers taking who they thought the Sixers would take. And I'm not, quite frankly, I'm not surprised. Sitting here, the Sixers took Joel Embiid with the number 3 pick, and this in conjunction with them getting Dario Saric, making a trade, with their 10th pick selection, and trading to get Dario Saric. It's made many fans of the Sixers scratch their heads. But I said I hinted last week. I mean, the Sixers team, regardless of what direction they go in the draft, I mean, they're not going to win anything next year. Whether if they dodge Joel Embiid and they took some of these other guys, they took Randall or this guy, Dante Exum or whatever, and they went a different direction. They drafted guys that would actually play next year. They would have been marginally better. I mean, my theory is what? Was that going to get them, 5 more wins next season? I mean, it wasn't going to, this isn't an NBA championship team, nowhere close right now. And I think, Sam Hinkie, that's the direction they're going. The whole motto has been since last year, together we build and this and that. And I think we've seen that, for the longest time, the Sixers were they were a playoff competitive team. You know, a fifth and sixth, but they weren't an NBA championship team. I mean, you know, 2001, they get there with Allen Iverson. That's the closest they've come to a championship team. But beyond that, I mean, they haven't. You know, other than that, I mean, after that, they haven't been an NBA championship team. They've been competitive, you know, for a string of time, and then, you know, you've seen the decline, and now, I mean, the reality is, in this day and age, to become a championship contending team, and not just a competitive playoff team. I mean, the direction. I mean, the approach now is, you know, you blow it all up. Start over. You tank the season, which the Sixers, you know, obviously they did last season, you know, basically. And it looks like we're kind of in another round for that coming up next year, because Joel Embiid, you know, with this foot injury, is the recovery timetable for Joel Embiid is 5 to 8 months. And, you know, obviously they're going to play it. I mean, obviously that would, what's the point in bringing them back in the middle of a season where they're not going to win anything anyways? Now, this year, and the same theory was used with Nerlens Noel last year when they took him as their first pick. Nerlens Noel, he didn't play this past season. And, you know, there was a time where they could have brought him back, but it was like, what's the point? They're going to roll him out this season. And obviously they have Rookie of the Year, Michael Carter-Williams, albeit in a weak class of, you know, what many people would agree would say was a weaker draft class last year, but nevertheless, you know, Rookie of the Year. And this, you know, there's any silver lining here, any reason to even, you know, go see the 76ers. I mean, I guess it's to see Nerlens Noel, because they're not going to win anything this year, and there's going to be a lot of empty seats. And, you know, I hear how, you know, some fans are now, you know, very, very fed up or disappointed with the Sixers organization because they bought season tickets for next season, and now, you know, none of these guys that they picked in the first round are even going to play next year, and essentially what we're in for is another, you know, tanking season. But I mean, I kind of throw it back, like, so you were going to buy season tickets for this season. You know, what made you think that they were going to be a very competitive team in the first place? I mean, what are you hoping that they, you know, get the 8th seed in the playoffs and then just get knocked out in the first round anyways, and then have a draft pick in the middle of the first round? I mean, you know, even had they gone Dante Exum and this guy or whatever that could start and play next year, it wouldn't make them, you know, dramatically better. It would make them, you know, a little better. Maybe 5 wins better. I don't know. Maybe they'd be a 30-win team and, you know, a 28, 29, 30-win team rather than, you know, another round of tanking the season this year, which, you know, is clearly the direction that they're going to go here. I mean, if you bought season tickets for that, I mean, thinking that the Sixers were going to be, you know, a whole lot better than they were this past season, I don't know what you were thinking, really. I mean, that's I guess the joke's on you here, but you know what, the Sixers organization, you know, Sam Hinkie, they know what they're doing. I mean, they know they're taking that risk too. They know that they're going to take a hit with slim attendance continuing, you know, not winning many games, tanking another season. They know that they're going to take a hit, and you know, obviously taking Joel Embiid at number 3, waiting for Dario Saric to you know, probably play in 2 years. You know, it's highly unlikely that he'll come out of Europe this year, this coming season or the next season. So, you know, but in two years, you know, he'll be out playing. You know, I know it ticks off a lot of Sixer fans that none of these high draft picks, essentially whatever they got in the draft in the first round. And a lot of fans are ticked that they're not even going to see him, and that the Sixers are going to essentially tank another season. But obviously, by doing this, I mean, I think Sam Hinkie and the Sixers organization is well aware and willing to take this hit, because I mean they're going to, I mean, like I said, I mean this year they're going to roll out Nerlens Noel, another. A guy who's probably going to be who's slated to be a focal point of this franchise, in this what they're trying, this dynasty that they're trying to build, and Joel Embiid, they roll out the next season when he's healthy again, and the year after that, Dario Saric, accumulation, stockpiling talent over the next, it's prolonged here, it's stretched out, I know, but I'll continue to talk about it in the next segment. As we got the first break coming up here, and we got other things to talk about, including the suspension of Lane Johnson getting caught using PEDs.
Oh no!
That's obviously not good news, and we'll talk about it right here in the Tyler Werner Show coming up in the next segment. Again, I'm flying solo today. Can't take any calls. Not that we take them too often here on KUR, but Facebook page, facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. I want to hear the thoughts out there of the people listening. If you're not, especially here in the Kutztown area, if you're not caught up over in the Folk Festival across the street right now, maybe you're sitting out on the patio on this nice day listening to KUR. I don't know. But it's the Tyler Werner Show, nevertheless, right here on Kutztown Radio.
You're listening to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR.
If you don't have health insurance, now's the time to get coverage under the Federal Affordable Care Act. All you need to do is choose your plan. Hi, I'm State Senator Judy Schwank with the Pennsylvania Moment. Log on to healthcare.gov and click on the link that says Get Insurance. You'll be able to choose a plan that fits your needs, and you may be able to get help paying for your coverage. I'm State Senator Judy Schwank with the Pennsylvania Moment.
Right here on the Tyler Werner Show, live on Kutztown Radio. We've got the Kutztown Folk Festival going on right now. Community days down in the Shillington area. All kinds of things going on this week. We got 4th of July. Just a few days away. Falling on a Friday this year. How about that? That's a pretty good day for 4th of July. You talk about days of the week, one of the weekend days, sort of, or the beginning of the weekend, I guess you could say. And of course, I go soccer here before I even talk about what the Phillies are up to, today. And, I got the big USA Belgium game coming up, right after I finish this show here at 4:00. So, for the one instance every 4 years, the 1 month every 4 years, in the that is the World Cup. We got the U.S. in competition, and so interesting game, obviously. I guess getting competitive here for Team USA. Even though I don't, they never win the World Cup, and obviously I mentioned a few weeks ago on the show. It's hard to believe, at least to me, that we can't, with the athletes we have here in the United States, we don't get a World Cup championship team together after all this time. And so, that's that. But getting back to the the Philadelphia-related sports topics here, since, obviously I don't know what more to say about the Philadelphia Phillies right now. I mentioned a couple minutes ago, Lane Johnson suspended for, offensive tackle, will reportedly miss the first 4 games of the season. This news broke yesterday, actually, and actually, talk about timing. Yesterday, I was I called into my favorite sport, Philadelphia sports listen, or sports radio listen. I called into the Mike Missinelli show, actually.
Outright.
Yesterday. Yes, and I was calling in to talk about the Sixers draft, kind of not in agreement, which with what I've been saying earlier and what I will continue to speak on in a moment. I called in to talk about that, but while I was waiting on the line, listening on the line, the news broke right before they Mike went to me on the line. So how about that? Just seconds before getting on the line with Mike Missinelli, that news broke, and it was brand new, breaking news, I guess you want to call it that time. I didn't say much about it. When I talked with him on the line, I already had everything thought out. I was going to talk about the Sixers draft, really, and what they did, and so all I really had to say at that point was that's not good news, and as the story was just breaking. Obviously, last year, this was the Eagles' first round draft pick, the offensive tackle. He had a decent season last year. He had an up and down season, but the offensive line was overall pretty solid though with him, and now, he's going to miss the first 4 games of the season. A couple big games in there. They're going to face San Francisco's defense in one of those games. So obviously that's not good. Lane Johnson, obviously, testing positive for PEDs. They're going to put Barber in place of him, and they don't. Another problem here is that the Eagles, they have a solid offensive line. Definitely, that's one of the strengths of the team, but they don't have a lot of depth when it comes to the offensive line. So and we saw this a few years ago when they didn't have depth, and most of their offensive line went down, and it was just a disaster in the 4-12 season, the demise of the Andy Reid era.
Time's yours.
Another guy on the offensive line goes down, and it could definitely spell trouble for this Eagles team. I also got to wonder with Lane Johnson. Off the PEDs, how good is he? Now the thing was, he used to be a quarterback, and I get maybe, I don't know, bulk up or whatever. Throughout college, I guess the PEDs may have helped him in that, and you got to wonder, off the PEDs. His body's gonna change. His body's gonna change when you get off PEDs like that, and I wonder how. I question how effective he's gonna be. When he comes back and actually does play. That does leave a little things up in the air when you got. And a mobile Nick Foles, who's he's not going to be running out of the pocket. He doesn't have that escapability. It could be it could be a bit of a blow to this offensive line. We'll see how Barber does for the in the meantime to replace Lane Johnson in the first 4 games of the season. But hopefully it's not too big of a blow, and hopefully the rest of the Eagles' offensive line can, not only stay healthy, but is staying clean as well. Some people would joke that the, apparently the Chip Kelly smoothies in sports science has not been enough for Lane Johnson, but But like I said, I mean, PED. I mean, he's probably been it's probably nothing new to Lane Johnson. I mean, he had to. He used to be a quarterback, and I mean, I don't know. Maybe he did some bulking up, really, for to become, a tackle for the NFL, for college, the NFL, whatever you want to put in it there. Unfortunately, some guys, they take shortcuts, and there's a risk here. I mean, and the risk here is, unfortunately, Lane Johnson is, learning. Sometimes risk isn't always reward, and sometimes you get caught for things like this, and so I mean, that's that. Now I'm going through the article here. One of the articles here. In hindsight, it says in hindsight, perhaps this suspension shouldn't come as a surprise. Johnson reportedly gained around 7 pounds of weight this offseason, moving up from 310 to 317. Now let me get a little something straight here. I mean, just because a guy gains 7 pounds of weight, in a period between the offseason, beginning of February to now, I mean, to me that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, I do a lot of weightlifting here. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, I continue that. I have a nice routine with the gym every week. 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, and I think the beginning of this year. I mean, I'm a short guy, low, pretty low body fat. I was maybe like 133 or so beginning of this year. I think last, and now I'm up to like 141, or I'm like low 140s. I know, my bench max is going up, a decent amount, and my deadlifts. I do deadlifts, and I do squats. I kind of do the whole powerlifting
Beast
thing.
mode.
Yeah. Power cleans, but so that doesn't, and believe me, I'm not taking any PEDs, or just because a guy gained 7 pounds, that doesn't mean anything. The bottom line is Lane Johnson was caught. He was drug tested, randomly, and that's just because a guy gained 7 pounds. I mean, I've gained 7 or 8 pounds or so, and I don't. It hasn't been body fat. If anything, it's been solid, beast mode muscle, I guess you'd call it here. I mean, I'm not trying to blow my own horn here, obviously, but so
Go ahead, hater.
But just because a guy gains 7 pounds, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Between a period like February to now it's July 1st. It's a 5-month period. The off season. I mean, it's hard to believe, but it's already been almost 5 months since the Super Bowl, really, and so to me that statement there is a little irrelevant, because again, I eat a good, I have a good diet and this and that, and I use whey protein. I don't mess with creatine or anything. Creatine are bad things, but protein, and drinking. A couple glasses of milk every day, and this and that. Really, that's the bottom line there. It's not. I wouldn't. That's not a big exclamation point. Anybody can, with the right formula, can gain 7 pounds of muscle in a 5-month period cleanly. And some people have phases too. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes you just have phases where it's, you gain weight a little easier. Your abilities to lift higher weights, they peak more, I guess you could call them. So, and then sometimes, you plateau a little bit. That's the nature of the game. Coming from a guy who, has been committed to that for, quite a little while now. I mean, since my earlier days of high school. But anyways, I mean, the bottom line is, Lane Johnson got caught randomly drug tested, and off PEDs. I question how good he's going to be for the Eagles' offensive line. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Because when you have to take shortcuts like this, and we've seen it before. Then when they go off the PEDs, off steroids or whatever, their body naturally their body changes and this and that. I mean that's the bottom line. So I would assume him off PEDs, he's gonna lose some of that muscle mass. By nature, that's what happens. So, not good news for the Philadelphia Eagles in the middle of this offseason as they await training camp. Just coming up in a few weeks, since it's now July 1st. Getting, and also, I mentioned Nick Foles. There's an interesting article that we'll talk about a little later in the show. Actually, with the it has the I guess whoever wrote it Pryor breaks down. Or no, it's not Pryor. That's another article I have up with the Flyers. The author of the article breaks down who they think is the most overrated player for each NFL team and the most underrated player for each NFL team. So we'll go on that later. And the question I throw out to everybody before I get into that later is, what do you think? Do you think Nick Foles is overrated or underrated when we talk about this? So, talk about that a little later on the show. But I wanted to get back to the Sixers draft that I was talking about. What they did, Joel Embiid, round 3. He's not going to play until next season. Pretty much. I mean, 5 to 8 months recovery with his foot injury, and I've heard from guys. I forget which optometrist or whatever it is that works on foot injuries or whatever. He's not going to play until the following season. They're going to have, they're just going to have him recover fully and most effectively when you got that 5 to 8 month timetable. Obviously, 8 months, I mean, it's July. 8 months would bring that to March, 8 months from today, March 1st. And, by that point, you got a month left in the season. And, even to be more surefire that he recovers efficiently, they're not going to have him play next season. That's, it's something that everybody's got to accept, really, at this point. I mean, now they tanked the season last year, and we saw the attendance dwindle, and essentially that's what they're going to do again this coming season. And so a lot of fans out there are outraged, especially those that bought season tickets, and they're gonna, obviously attendance is once again going to be slim next year, but obviously Hinkie and the Sixers organization, they're willing to take that risk for the long-term growth of this team. You see, what they're doing here, though, is they're building a foundation. Essentially, is what they're doing here. I mean, obviously, it's tough. Being you got to see another tank season, back-to-back tank seasons, and the season after that. I mean, you probably see some improvement on this team. Considering they're going to have, by that point, they're going to have rolled out more players, but essentially what we got here is a team that, because they took who they took, and all they're going to really roll out next year is Nerlens Noel. They're not going to compete for anything. Essentially what we have is a Sixers team that's going to be better positioned next year to get another high, first round draft talent on this team.
I agree.
I mean, you're gonna, they tanked the season again next year, but again, it's not like they were gonna win anything next year if they took, Dante Exum or insert player here that that would play for this team next year, but that would only make the team, slightly better. So so what, they win 30 games or whatever, maybe not even that, and what does that get them? That doesn't get them a playoff spot or anything. That only gets them more likely a lower pick in the the first round of the draft. It's a bit of a sacrifice, obviously, but what they're able to do here, they're stockpiling talent. Really, is what they're doing here, and that that's, as I mentioned earlier, that's what I talked about when I talked for a little with Mike Missinelli yesterday on his show. Yes, and I said they're stockpiling talent essentially. And next year they're going to be in better position to do that again. Now, the season after that, let's look at the roster here a little bit. This year they roll out Nerlens Noel this season, but essentially, another tank job. Then the year after that, they roll out Joel Embiid, now a healthy Joel Embiid. We see how healthy he can be. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he continues to be hampered with injuries. But they had to take the risk though to get a big 7-footer who can, who's skilled like that and who has a high ceiling. Really, you had to, take that chance. Now the year after that, Dario Saric, from who's a European superstar in the basketball world. They bring him over the season after that, and after this, I forget to mention, they roll out Joel Embiid 2015 to 2016 season, as well as a high draft talent in the 2015 NBA draft. So they roll, and you got Nerlens Noel out there, Michael Carter-Williams, and you got a pretty decent team there. And then the next year, whoever they draft, whoever else they've drafted, and they roll out Dario Saric, and I guess that we're looking now at 2016, 2017, and whatever else they've drafted, and also keep in mind they have a lot of cap space. What are they? They have like $30 million free in cap space, at least right now. Again, they're going to have stockpiled a young foundation. Keyword there, young team. And, other teams during that time who are good, they might be dealing with some attrition, some players getting up there in age. You see that with the Heat, they have to deal with, everybody their stars opting out of their contracts, and, Dwayne Wade, getting, becoming a part-time player essentially, getting up there in age. Bosch, is becoming spotty, and, this and that. So the Sixers, though, even a few years from now, they're not going to be dealing with that. They're not going to be dealing with aging players, really. They're going to be dealing with players that are, for the unless, Joel Embiid can't stay healthy or whatever. There's still other talent on this team that is going to be, picking up in their career. They're going to be heading towards the prime of their careers, And I'm talking like 2017, 2018 then, several years from now. So it's a sacrifice. But obviously one that, Sam Hinkie is willing to take with the Sixers organization this coming season in what looks like another tank job. But, for the better of the long-term picture here with the 76ers organization. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show is today. It's just me flying solo. Can't take calls really with, no producers. So... But, before the show ends, get it on the Facebook page if you'd like and talk Sixers draft here, as well as Eagles, suspension, Lane Johnson and this and that, all things Eagles, whatever else, all things Philadelphia sports, right here on the Tyler Werner Show on Kutztown Radio.
Mitch, I have some bad news for you.
What's that?
I'm dropping the electronic media major.
What? Why? Now you can't be in KUR anymore.
Well, actually, anyone can join KUR, even if you aren't an electronic media major.
Really?
Yeah, anyone can join.
Even if you're a library science major?
Even if you're a library science major.
What about a nursing major?
They don't even have that here.
Oh yeah.
If you're interested in joining, just go into www.kutztown.edu/KUR for more information.
Yeah.
Kutztown University's Department of Information Technology recently launched MyKU Mobile, which can be accessed at mykumobile.kutztown.edu. MyKU Mobile provides a quick way for students to view grades, financial aid information, announcements, and schedules, all from your phone. The new site also integrates with social networking sites, enabling students to post their schedules on Twitter and Facebook without ever having to use a computer. Make sure to visit myku.kutztown.edu for the best way to view MyKU on your phone.
.343 right here on the Tyler Werner Show and Kutztown Radio. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show is how you can get in on this show, in the form of just text today, because we don't, Mike is out of the office today, and he won't be back until tomorrow to, help run the radio station. So, with that in mind, can't take any calls today. Not that we really ever do, anyways. But like to sometime, in the future in this show, and if the people out there are willing to step up to the plate, bring something to the show. If you're listening, I want this is the only Philadelphia sports talk show we have on KUR. I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal here or anything, but it's Philadelphia sports talk. It's the Philadelphia territory, and regardless, this station should have Philadelphia sports talk. So so when I'm not here anymore, when I'm done with college, I would hope I would hope somebody else would also do Philadelphia sports talk here on this radio station. So I'm not just trying to make highlight myself here or anything or whatever. But speaking of the Philadelphia sports talk, let's get back to the Philadelphia sports talk. Again, I've been talking a lot about NBA draft, what the Sixers did, long-term planning essentially out of Sam Hinkie, and taking Joel Embiid at their third pick. They're not. He's not going to play next year, but I think at that position, you have to take the risk, I guess, if you want to call it a risk, that the guy has a high ceiling, and in the future, he has a much greater potential to be a headache for other teams in this league than other guys that they could have taken at that spot in the draft. Essentially, the players that were taken after Joel Embiid at number 3. And don't get me wrong, not to put any of those other players down, but you want a decent player, knock yourself out. But essentially, the Sixers took a guy at number 3 that could potentially be a nightmare for other teams in this league. And again, it's a slow build right here, and that but I gotta say, the Sixers are doing it right here as far as if you want to build a championship team. If you just want to be competitive, like we've seen the Sixers been for, in much of the 2000s so far. That's that. But a championship, it's been a long time since the Sixers have been NBA champions, and it's a sacrifice, but it's one that the Sixers are willing to take. And if several years from now they're not competing for an NBA championship, then the blame's on Sam Hinkie, obviously, and talent evaluation may have failed, whatever, and they take the blame for that. It's quite simple. If it's 2020, and maybe at that time I'll hopefully be doing something big on Philadelphia sports radio. Maybe at that time, and they're not competing or whatever for a championship. They're not in that mix. They're not like a Miami Heat or San Antonio Spurs team that is, one of the favorites to win the championship. Then, I'll be sitting there and saying, I remember what I said, several years ago when I was still a college student, on a hot summer day doing Philadelphia sports radio, alone in the studio. I'll remember what I said, that, essentially if they don't, if they're not successful here and, this risk that they're taking does not pay off, then, you get zipped, and that's the bottom line. It's a failure. But right now I like what the Sixers are doing for the long-term future of this team, for the long-term growth of this team. I think they're putting in a foundation. And again, I mean, Joel Embiid not playing this year, Dario Saric not playing for 2 years, it looks like. In the long term, it can be a blessing in disguise, because that's only going to help. I mean, it's only going to help them get a higher draft pick next year. And again, stockpiling. That's like the key word of the day here when I talk, Sixers basketball. And thinking about it right now, this is probably the most Sixers we're gonna talk here, at least probably for the rest of my tenure here on Kutztown Radio, until I'm next summer when I'm interning, more likely than not, and throughout this coming NBA season, the Sixers, another tank job will be overshadowed anyways by an interesting Eagles season. Year one of the Ron Hextall general manager led era of the Philadelphia Flyers, and so I'm not too I'm not too concerned. But again, I mean, this is probably the most Sixers will really talk for ever on this show, because again, as I mentioned earlier, I should be interning next year, next summer. So at that point, next year's NBA draft, I probably won't hear me talking Philadelphia sports. But anyways, so that's that. Probably there you go. That's probably the most Sixers you'll hear on this station, really, unless another guy comes on and at some point and talks Philadelphia sports, like I would hope this station would continue, when next year when I'm not here, whatever, because Philadelphia sports, we bleed, we really have a passion for our sports teams, and with the Philadelphia Eagles especially, that's no, we're no strangers to that, to that theory, obviously. I mentioned earlier in the show, I wanted to get to this overrated, underrated player from each NFL team. I mean, obviously, with the Philadelphia Eagles, I threw out the question earlier, Nick Foles, because he is in this article. Overrated, underrated, what is everybody's thoughts out there? Well, this article has him as the overrated player of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Let's make some noise, come on!
Yeah, I mean, let's make some noise. I mean, but, overrated quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm sure, people are waiting to see, what I have to say about this. I mean, look, I don't really think about, when people, is he overrated or is he under? I mean, I just don't even think about that right now, because, the way I look at it is, the whole idea here is it's an incomplete idea, really. I mean, I guess the rationale, if you want to call it, that they have here is let's slow the train down some, okay? In caps there. He did some good things last season, but you'd think he was a star already. It takes time. Let's see him do it again. Not saying he can't, but let's see it again. And I agree with that. Let's see it again. I mean, by see it again, in terms of statistics, because when everybody says that when it comes to Nick Foles, let's see him do it again. Everybody's thinking the 27-2 touchdown interception ratio, and see it again. By that I mean 35 touchdowns and 10 interceptions statistically is good to me. 40 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, good enough for me. So something like that in that range. But that's not everything, because that 27-2 touchdown interceptions, that's great. And if you throw the New Orleans Saints playoff game in there, 29-2, those are great. That's a great statistic there. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the Eagles didn't make a deep playoff run. I mean, I'm not trying to put Nick Foles down here, but let's also maybe see him win a playoff game. I got that the 29-2, 27-2, however you want to look at it. I mean, that is great. But when it comes down to a big game, I mean, I cut Nick Foles some slack. I mean, it was his first playoff game. It was in like 20-degree weather at night that he, being from Texas or whatever. I mean, he was never used to playing in that cold of weather. So I cut him a little slack for that. But at the end of the day, I mean, they didn't get the deep playoff. They didn't get a deep playoff run or anything. So I mean, even if he did go 27-2 next year, I mean, let's see how much the Eagles win next year. I mean, they got a tough schedule here. Now Lane Johnson is out for the first 4 games, and he might not, be nearly as good off PEDs as he is on. Since this time, I guess he's been on PEDs or whatever. I don't know, but the bottom line is he got caught, and now he's paying for it the first 4 games of the season. And the Eagles are paying for it the first 4 games of the season. They're going to play, the toughest division in football this year. I have them going 2-2 against that division. Obviously losing to the Seahawks and the 49ers. But let's see how they. I mean, obviously they got to win the division again. I mean, or else it'll be a big disappointment. And if for whatever reason, like the Redskins were to win the division, I mean, that would, Chip Kelly, this and that, they got he got rid of Deshaun Jackson. Now look with Redskins. I can't imagine the kind of outrage that would bring, to the Philadelphia fan base. Really,
it's an outrage.
Yeah, it would be an outrage, but it wouldn't be coming out of Washington. It would be, Washington causing the outrage coming out of Philly. I mean, look, they should win the division and essentially get another home playoff game like last year in the season. Now, I would project if they go 10-6, I mean, or something which I might have, I think that's where I've had them at consistently. They win the division. I mean, most likely that would get them the 4th seed. I mean, obviously the Seahawks, the NFC West, one of those teams is going to win 12 games or more to get a first round bye, I would think. The Saints probably going to win the South, and they're looking pretty. I mean, I could see them winning 12 games. The Packers are looking improved. Unless Aaron Rodgers goes down for a significant amount of time again, they're going to win 11, 12 games. So the way I look at it, I mean, the Eagles winning the division gets them a 4th seed, and would probably put them against the 49ers at home. And now, obviously that's as I went through the regular season, my predictions, and, I haven't really changed any of them yet. I mean, the Eagles traveling to the 49ers in week 4 or whatever it is, probably a loss there. I mean, but they get a home playoff game, say against the 49ers. And the 49ers, they have to come over 3,000 miles to Philadelphia and, face the Eagles. So, be a statement win against a tough team that is the 49ers. But, it's doable, and it's a big test. I mean, they lose to them earlier in the season. I don't know. Maybe towards the end of the season, the defense has improved, maybe to a degree. I don't know. I mean, and you got this Chip Kelly. I don't know. We'll see how the offense comes out this season. From words I've been hearing, I mean, they've been now a lot of this team is used to running this Eagles offense. They plug in a couple new receivers, obviously, but the rest of the team, I mean, they're running at a fast pace from what I hear. More consistently. I don't know. But, I mean, the bottom line is, the play calling, to me, is more important than the pace. Because, if you go 3 and out and, you only take a couple seconds off the clock and it's a competitive game and, you lose the lead or whatever, you're coming from behind, then obviously, you could find yourself in some trouble. So, play calling is more important. And just the, Nick Foles making great throws and all that is really what it's going to come down to when you talk Eagles offense. But, let's see, obviously with this whole overrated, underrated thing, let's see Nick Foles do it again in that sense of, a great touchdown to interception ratio that he had last season. And obviously let's see him win the division and hopefully a playoff game. I mean, at home, for Nick Foles to be the real deal, I think is where you have to go. I mean, if they win the division and they lose to the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs, I mean, I don't know, it's a little up in the air. But we gotta close down the show today as the clock is now ticking to 4 o'clock here. So we'll talk more of this next week. When I think Mike Regensburg will be back in the studio to maybe take calls if anybody wants to step up and we'll talk more of this overrated, underrated article around the league maybe, as I didn't really get to the rest of it, but nevertheless, thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll talk to you next week right here on the Tyler Werner Show on Kutztown Radio.